At the start of June this year, I was faced with a conundrum. I wanted to perform more. I had so many tricks in my repertoire, but I didn't have a lot of experience performing any of them. I also needed some Instagram content, so I combined the two together and I came up with a challenge for myself. I was going to try to perform magic every single day until it was my job, and I was going to film the process. And so for the next 52 consecutive days, I filmed and uploaded a new video every single day performing for a random person in the public. So today I want to break down the top 3 things that I learned during that challenge, which will hopefully make you more confident in approaching strangers and also make you a better magician in general. But stick around to the end of the video because I also have some general advice that I think will help you in terms of approaching strangers and performing for people in general. So let's get into the first method. When I first thought of the idea to perform for people on the street, I was not comfortable at all going up to people and stopping them and performing for them. So I wanted a way for people to come to me. And so what I came up with was what I call the sign method. And that is basically to take a piece of cardboard and write on it, stop if you want to see something impossible. You can write any kind of variation of this. And then I would just leave this here. I'd sit down on a bench and I'd just push it into the bench. And obviously I haven't set this up, but I'd leave it like this. And then I'd wait for people to stop. This was a great method actually because it stopped me from having to be the person to approach. It meant that I could build my confidence slowly and that the people who came up to me wanted to see magic automatically. So this was a great method for that. And initially I actually didn't have any cardboard. So what I actually did is I went into a McDonald's. I asked for cardboard, and McDonald's always have cardboard. They're minimum wage workers and they don't care about giving away cardboard. And they always have like a box of French fries or something. So here's a clip of when I just did that just to prove how easy it is to do. Hi. I was wondering if you guys have some cardboard out the back, just like a sheet of cardboard. I'm just using it for a project. Is it okay? That is perfect. Thanks so much.
79.
Easy as that. So, what are the pros of this method? Well, it's easy. You don't have to have any real social skills other than when people stop and want to see magic. And you can kind of just sit there. I kind of sat there reading, I would just fiddle with cards and people would be interested and stop. And it's a great way to narrow down who gets to see it. You don't have to worry about fear of rejection because people are coming up to you. However, there are also a number of downsides. The first downside is you're going to have to wait quite a while. The first time I did this, I think I waited for an hour and a half total. And in that time, I performed for 4 or 5 groups of people. So it's not the most time efficient method, you're going to be sitting there for quite a while. But if you've got an area with good foot traffic right in the middle of town or in a park somewhere, then this is a great method to start out. So yeah, that's the sign method. And once I got more confident with this kind of thing, I ended up scrapping this method and moving on to something a little bit more surefire. So let's move on to my next method, which involves homeless people.
Yeah.
Once I'd become a little bit more confident in performing for people and I'd practiced the sign method a little bit, I started going out and performing for people on the street. But what I found is that the first performance of the day was always the hardest. No matter what kind of day, no matter how confident I was, the first performance always seemed to make me the most nervous. And so I developed another method. This one was to help me get the first performance out of the way as easily as possible so that all the subsequent performances would be super simple. And what I discovered is that homeless people are very easy to approach. You see, they're sitting there and most of the time they're not doing anything, they're not on their way to somewhere else, and they're also used to being approached by people. And so I started going up to homeless people, and you do have to be careful about who you go up to because everyone is different and some homeless people are a little bit more unhinged than others, but most of the time they're really nice and they really appreciate the chance to talk to someone. And if you go up to them and explain that you're trying to perform magic and you want to show them something, most of the time they'll be thrilled. They'll be excited to have something different in the day, I guess. And I actually really enjoy this method. Even if I'm not feeling nervous, I'll go up to a homeless person and start off because it gets me in a good headspace. It shows me that I'm doing this for them. I'm not just trying to get content and trying to improve as a magician. I'm also doing it to make their day better. Now, in regards to filming this, you do have to be a bit more discreet. I don't want to go up to a homeless man and shove a camera in their face. So what I would do is I would set up a little tripod close by and I would explain that I'm filming and I'd ask their permission, which you should always do. And I also have a little camera which I'll explain in the gear section around how I film that kind of stuff. Hey, I just wanted to interject here a little bit and just warn you about going up to homeless people, okay? I was very blasé about it in this clip, but I do want to say be extremely careful when you're doing something like this. I've heard horror stories from places like New York where, you know, there's a lot of terrible crime and it's very dangerous to do this kind of thing. So just be aware of who you're approaching. Have a look at them and you can kind of quickly analyze, are they going to be the kind of person who responds well to magic, or are they going to mug you? And it's an important distinction to make. So I just want to put that in there. Please be careful when you're doing this kind of thing because it is somewhat dangerous. But I also wanted to put a little clip in here. This is a performance that I did on that day for a homeless person. There's a really lovely guy called Chris, and I think you'll enjoy it. It might show you kind of how I approach that kind of thing. So here's the clip. Hey man.
Hi bro, you alright?
What's your name?
Chris mate.
Chris, I'm Caleb.
Nice to meet you.
I should just let you know I'm filming. Is that okay? I'm a magician,
Yeah.
and I'm going around performing for people today. Would you mind if I showed you something quick?
Go on then.
Yeah?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, Chris. Is that Chris with a CH?
Yeah, that's good, yeah.
Cool. Okay. I have your 4, but this was not the hard part. The hard part was getting the ace into your hand.
Yeah, well, that's brilliant. That's amazing, yeah?
Thank you.
That's good.
Nice. Hey, lovely to meet you, mate.
Yeah,
And,
that's brilliant, is that?
yeah, cheers. Appreciate it.
That's really good, man.
And I'm really sorry I don't have any change, but
you're alright.
I wish you all the
That's
best.
one of really good man, man. Bless. Yeah, thanks very much for your time.
Cool.
And all
Thanks,
the best in the future, yeah?
Yeah,
That's
appreciate
wicked,
it.
Mate. That's brilliant.
Cheers. So, what are the pros and cons of performing with the homeless method? The pros are it gets rid of the first performance. It's an easy approach, and most of the time it's not too difficult to find homeless people. I had to kind of walk around for maybe 10 minutes before I found someone. Nottingham, where I am living at the moment, is thankfully very light on homeless people. But if you're performing in London or Edinburgh or just a big city in general, there's bound to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people living on the streets, which is a tragedy, of course. But you can brighten their days a little bit with some magic. And in terms of cons, as long as you're careful that you're not approaching people who look a little bit too crazy, then there's almost no cons to this method. I love using it. It's one of my favourite methods for starting out the day. I prefer personally for performing for bigger groups, and with homeless people you don't really get that, so that's one con. But in terms of just general cons with the method, there aren't really any. So I'd recommend going out and testing this out. Even if you just want a taster and you don't want to go out and do like a whole day of performing magic, you just want to do it once, I'd recommend just going up to a homeless person and performing for them. I'd recommend doing that, and also it's just a really good idea to help out those people who can't help themselves. You do have to be careful because there are people who make a living off homelessness, and you don't want to always be giving money to them, but most of the time people are just there because they've had a really rough set of circumstances. And there's a quote that actually our good friend Jason Mars told me once, which is that we're all one bad day away from being homeless. So if you keep that in mind, think about how it would change your day if someone came up to you, gave you some change, and performed some magic for you. So that's the homeless person method, but now we're going to move on to my favourite method in the video, and that is a method that's much more reliable and will get great reactions. Almost every city, at least every major one, has some kind of area where there are a lot of tourists. Maybe it's a museum, maybe it's a landmark, somewhere where there's a lot of people in a crowd taking photos. And this is the situation that you're going to want to use the third method in, which is the tourist method. Right now I'm in Old Market Square, which is the central square in Nottingham, which is Nottingham's equivalent of a big tourist spot. But there's not a lot of people. Nottingham's not a huge city, and maybe this is not the right spot. I'm only new to this city. Now once you've found a good place that has a lot of tourists in it, there's no doubt going to be a lot of people that are taking selfies. Usually this is a couple, sometimes it's people by themselves, but most of the time it's people in a group. And what you can do is walk up to those people and ask them if they'd like you to take a photo of them. Most of the time they'll be super grateful, and usually people are super happy to have someone taking a photo of them so they can get the whole group. Sometimes though they do think you're trying to steal their phone, so it does depend on where you do this. I have had people kind of think that when I'm in London and also in Spain. I've tried in Edinburgh with great success, so you do have to just kind of play around with your city and get what feels right. But once you've taken a photo of them, and sometimes this is a great opportunity to kind of make remarks and jokes and kind of break the ice a little bit, I hand them back their phone and I explain that I'm trying to perform magic on the streets and ask if they'd like to see something. Now, psychologically, this is incredibly easy for them to say yes to. Not only have you just done something for them, which means that they're much more likely to say yes to you, but also they now trust you because you've given them their phone. They know you're not trying to scam them or anything like that. So what are the pros and cons? Well, the pros are that it's actually very easy to walk up to people and ask them if they want their photo taken. You're asking if you can do something for them, which makes it easy for them to say yes. The other pros is that it's got a high hit rate. What are the cons? Well, there aren't really any cons. The only con is that people might think you're trying to steal something, but in reality that just doesn't happen very often. You want to be dressed reasonably nice, you want to have a smile on your face, you don't want to be looking nervous, because all these things are going to put people off. But yeah, I really like this method and I hope you get a lot of success from it. And those are the 3 methods. But don't click away just yet, because in a second I'm going to give you some advice that I wish I'd had when I was starting out.
Yeah.
Could I get a regular hot chocolate, please? Thanks so much. Performing for strangers is a difficult thing. You have to approach people on the street, you have to be confident, and then you have to show them something that's going to blow their mind. So there are a few tips that I picked up as I performed for 52 days in a row that I'd love to pass on. Now the first thing I want to talk about is demographic. When you approach people, you've got to make sure that you're approaching the right kind of person. There's a few different groups that I would steer clear of, and there are a few people who I would kind of make a beeline for. The first group I'd steer clear of is any families with kids. Not only is filming a kid's just a difficult and complicated issue, also that's not the kind of magic I do, so I would kind of avoid families and kids. The other thing I'd avoid is any girls who are under the age of like 21 or look to that kind of age, because again, there's kind of ramifications for filming that kind of age group. And the kind of people that I'd make a beeline for are people my own age, guys who are just hanging out, usually students. Those are the kind of people that I know are going to give a good reaction and I know are going to want to see something. And once you do this enough, you kind of develop a taste for who is going to say yes and who's not. Usually middle-aged couples are kind of very hit or miss. If they look like they're having a good time, they're probably going to say yes. If they look like they're just kind of on their way somewhere, I kind of just usually steer clear. And it's the same with elderly people. Some elderly people are the most fun people you ever perform for.
I'm not as soft as I look then.
But others just don't want a bar of it. So you do kind of develop a bit of a taste for what is going to work and what isn't. So just be aware of demographics, especially the ones that you shouldn't be filming, because there are some definitely that you don't want to be posting social media at all. The second tip is all about confidence. It's a difficult thing to walk up to someone in the middle of the street and ask them if they want to see some magic. And so there are a few tips that I picked up as I did it, which make that process a lot easier. And the first is just the simple kind of things. You've got to be genuine about it. You've got to show them that you're the kind of person who is not going to scam them. You're not going to ask them for money or anything like that. So you can do this by walking up to them and faking it. Just pretend that you're confident. And actually this is a good life tip as well. If you just pretend that you're confident, no one can tell the difference. And so walk up to them with a smile on your face, look them in the eyes when you're talking to them, and those kind of things will portray that you're the kind of person who is comfortable in their own skin. The second thing that makes that easier is having some kind of memorized phrase that you say when you walk up to them. So one of my go-tos during this challenge was, hey, I'm doing a challenge to perform magic every day for a different person. Would you mind if I showed you something quick? Sure. Yeah, cool. And there are a couple of important things in that phrase. The first is that you immediately show them why you're coming up to them as a challenge. You're not going to ask them for money, they can understand that immediately as soon as you say that. The second thing is you emphasize the word quick. This is going to be something that's going to take them a minute or two. It's not going to take 5 or 10 minutes of their time. And also you explain that you're doing magic. This is not the kind of thing where they're going to be shown a flyer and asked to donate to a charity. This is going to be something interesting for them. So if you can kind of convey all those things in one phrase, then you'll be golden. And following on from that, I want to talk about rejection. That's another thing that everyone has to face if you're performing for people on the street, is people saying no and how to move on from that. And at the end of the day, it's just something that you kind of have to get used to. You can only really deal with it once you've heard no a lot of times. And so once you realise that people will just forget about you as soon as they say no, then it becomes much easier to just kind of go for it and kind of take that leap of faith. And also the more you do this, the easier it's going to be to just move on immediately. Nowadays when I go out and perform, if someone says no, I just move immediately onto the next group and I've already forgotten about them. So rejections kind of are an important thing you have to face, but they're not the end of the world. I mean, at the end of the day, you're just going up to them to do a card trick. You're not getting rejected at a date or something like that. It's a very low significance. Hey, it's Editing Caleb again. I know, right? 2 times in one video. But I just wanted to pop in here and say I did film an entire section talking about gear, specifically around how to film yourself when you're performing on the street. So if you're interested in that, it went too long. I didn't want to include in this video because it was taking up too much time. So I'll leave a link down below in the description where you can find an unlisted video with that section in it. It's about 6 minutes long and it'll show you what I've learned about filming myself doing magic on the streets. So check that out if you're interested. And just while I'm here, I just want to say if you have any questions about anything in the video or anything you want to mention, please put it in the comments. I'll be there and I'm happy to answer anything that you want to know. So let's go on to the final tip. The very last tip I have for this video is to just get out and do it. It's often easy to overthink these kind of things and it can feel like a much bigger deal than it actually is. But when you just kind of step out the door and grab your phone and just go out and perform, then it becomes the easiest thing in the world. And it's, like I said in the start of the video, it's been one of the best decisions I've made in the last few months. Getting out and performing has improved my performance abilities. It's also made the tricks of my repertoire much more solid. But ultimately, it's made me more confident as a person. It's very easy to approach people now and just break the ice, because you can't get harder than just doing it in front of real people. And it means that any other performance scenario, whether that's on stage or whether that's in a restaurant or something like that, any gigs become immediately easier, because the streets are the hardest places to perform. So if you can do it on the streets, you can do it anywhere else. So I hope you have got something out of this video. It's been super fun for me to make, and I've been wanting to kind of share this stuff for a while. And I really hope you get out and do it. If you do, then let me know in the comments or tag me on Instagram. I've left all the details about that down in the description. I'd really love to see people getting out and performing, because at the end of the day, what good is practicing magic if you don't go out and perform it for people? So hope you get out and do it. I'm going to finish my hot chocolate and enjoy the rest of the day, and I hope you do too.